In 146 BC, when Rome destroyed Carthage, they didn't just burn the city, they salted the earth, so nothing could ever grow again. It wasn't war, it was annihilation. Machiavelli understood this principle of total defeat. When you destroy an enemy, he warned, never leave the roots alive. But what if your enemy doesn't ride on horses or carry steel in her hand? What if she walks into your life with softness, affection, and eyes that never blink? History remembers kings who fell by swords, but it forgets those who fell by seduction. In ancient Sparta, queens were trained to tame warriors before they faced them. In the Ottoman courts, sultans married their enemies' daughters and dissolved kingdoms through a kiss. Helen didn't hold a sword, yet 1,000 ships were sent to die for her. You were taught to fear war, to fear weapons, but no one warned you about charm. No one told you that a smile can be sharper than a blade. You think you're choosing her, but she's already inside your castle. And here's the truth. If you don't understand this, if you keep believing her warmth means safety, then you're not in love. You're being conquered. Because today, in the age of dopamine, dating apps, and digital illusions, the battlefield hasn't vanished. It's evolved. It's in the way she withholds a reply, the way she disappears just when you open up, the way she plays innocence, while your mind burns in obsession. So let me leave you with one question. A question Machiavelli would demand you answer before it's too late. If a woman can win without ever fighting you, have you truly won by loving her, or have you already surrendered? Keep that question in your mind, because what comes next will change how you see every glance, every silence, every "I love you" forever. In 1532, Niccolò Machiavelli's manuscript, The Prince, was published. A book so dangerous, so brutally honest, that for centuries it was banned, burned, and whispered about in the shadows of power. But what most forget is this. He never wrote it for kings alone. He wrote it for the man who walks among snakes. For the one who smiles at seduction, yet feels something darker beneath it. And in one forgotten letter, he made a chilling observation. Wars are not always fought with swords. The most silent victories are often won in bed. He had watched kingdoms fall not through battle, but through softness, through trust, through women. Just look at Mark Antony, the great Roman general. He had power, armies, alliances, but the moment Cleopatra entered his life, Rome saw him as weak, distracted, conquered, not by war, but by affection, by desire, by a woman who didn't need a sword to bring a man to his knees. Machiavelli didn't hate women. He feared the power men gave them, not through force, but through fantasy. He knew something that most men today still deny. The most effective weapon is the one that doesn't look like one. And if you still believe modern romance is immune to this, just ask yourself, in a world of emotional warfare, dopamine traps, and algorithmic seduction, are you the one choosing? Are you being chosen for conquest? They call it love. But look again, it's a contract where only one party signs in blood. You give, you open, you stay loyal, and she withholds, disappears, returns on her terms. This isn't love, it's emotional feudalism. You're the peasant offering devotion, while she sits on the throne of your attention. In modern relationships, the lie is sold sweetly. Be vulnerable, be open, be honest. But every time you reveal your heart, she measures it, tests it, calculates its value, not in emotion, but in utility. Just ask Jeff, a 38-year-old engineer from Seattle. He married the woman of his dreams, bought her a house, gave up his passions, worked late, paid off her debt. 2 years in, she said she was unhappy, filed for divorce, took the house, took the car, took full custody of their child. Now she's on Instagram preaching about self-love, while Jeff rents a room in someone else's basement, paying alimony for a family he's no longer allowed to see. Did she plan this? Maybe not, but the system made it effortless. This isn't rare, it's ritual. And here's the truth Machiavelli would whisper in your ear. The more you chase her validation, the more you lose sovereignty over yourself. Because a man in need is a man in chains. She becomes your mirror, reflecting back a version of yourself that only exists if she smiles. And when she withdraws, you vanish with her. You think this is love? It's servitude, disguised as romance. But sovereignty begins the moment you no longer need her approval to feel like a man, when your silence becomes colder than hers, when your presence stops negotiating for permission, when your identity is no longer reactive, but rooted, self-issued, and untouchable. Modern love taught you to seek completion in her, but Machiavelli would teach you this: the man who needs nothing controls everything. And until you become that man, you'll keep mistaking the cage for connection. She's not your enemy. But the image of her, crafted by Western culture, is: you were taught to worship her smile, to fear her silence, to give, prove, and bleed just to be chosen. But what if I told you? She's been turned into a psychological weapon, not by herself, but by the very system that claims to protect you. Modern media paints the obedient man as noble, the sacrificial husband as evolved, the man who submits to her needs as emotionally mature. But Machiavelli would scoff at this illusion. Because when the state wants to control men, it doesn't use chains anymore, it uses women. Watch a perfume ad, a luxury car commercial, a Netflix drama. Always the same message: be desirable to her, and you'll be complete. They made your manhood dependent on her gaze, and now men fight each other for her attention. They go broke proving their worth. They betray their nature just to avoid her rejection. But here's the dark Machiavellian truth. She was placed on the pedestal so that you would kneel without realizing it. This isn't evolution, it's domestication. In schools, you're taught to be passive. In dating apps, you're taught to compete. In marriage, you're taught to sacrifice. But never, not once, are you taught to command. Because a sovereign man cannot be ruled. So they broke you early, with guilt, with shame, with dreams of a woman who would complete you, if only you gave more. This is not about hating women. It's about seeing how the system uses her as a mirror, to reflect back the parts of you they wanted to tame. Ask yourself this: if you stopped trying to impress her, would anything you're doing still matter to you? Because until you break that mirror, you'll keep living in a room built by someone else. You think she's special because she's rare, because she's different, because she doesn't need anyone. But what you're feeling isn't attraction, it's scarcity. Freud would tell you, this isn't about her. It's about what she represents to your unconscious mind, the missing piece of love you never received. When a woman goes cold, becomes distant, detached, your id panics. It screams, don't lose this. Fight, prove your worth. But that urge is not coming from love, it's coming from lack. As a child, maybe your mother gave affection inconsistently. Maybe she was emotionally unpredictable, loving one moment, punishing the next. That trained your nervous system to chase approval. You learned that love is something to earn, not receive. So now, when a woman mirrors that same distance, your unconscious says, this is familiar, this is home, and you fall for the trap, not because she's special, but because her behavior reactivates an old wound. She doesn't need to say anything. Her silence becomes a mirror, reflecting your boyhood fears back at you, and in that reflection, you stop being a man and start being a little boy again, desperate to feel seen, chosen, loved. Modern women know this, even if they don't say it. They know how to pull away, how to delay replies, how to use absence like a leash, and every time you chase, you become more predictable, more programmable, more breakable. But here's the reversal. The man who doesn't chase is the man who becomes scarce himself. He doesn't react to the void, he fills it with his own sovereignty. So let me ask you, when she stops giving, do you collapse, or do you become the source? Because only one of those paths leads to power. She doesn't come to destroy, she comes to disturb, not with swords, but with silence, not with fire, but with confusion. And you call it mood swings, you call it drama, but she calls it instinct because something in her, ancient, unseen, wants to feel your edges. Not your kindness, not your words, your containment. She triggers jealousy not to betray, but to study your reaction. She creates distance not to leave, but to observe who you become when she does. This is the test no one told you about. Will you beg? Will you chase? Will you crumble to win her back? If you do, you fail. Because now you're not the man, you're the one trying to qualify, and women don't fall for men they can shake. Freud understood this better than most. He called it repetition compulsion, a subconscious loop where the mind recreates early wounds, hoping this time someone will stay. She recreates emotional storms not out of malice, but to find the man strong enough to remain unmoved. And if you flinch, she sees her father, the one who folded, the one who yelled, the one who disappeared. So she keeps searching for the man whose silence is not surrender, but sovereignty. The man who doesn't explain his value, the man who doesn't fight for approval, the man who doesn't perform to be loved. Because her soul doesn't want to lead, it wants to test power and then surrender to it. So the next time she spirals, don't plead, don't punish, don't run, stand still, let the waves crash, let the chaos roar, and remain still. That stillness, that's when she sees what she's never had. Not dominance, not control, but gravity. A man who cannot be moved. A man who is not reacting to her storm, but defining its horizon. That's when she whispers, I can finally rest. Because now she knows. You're not the boy who needs love. You're the man who commands it by never needing it. There's an ancient tale from the cold kingdoms of the north. A warrior stood before a queen who had burned 3 husbands. She told him, if you want me, survive me. She didn't mean war. She meant her silence, her storms, her seduction, her vanishing. For 7 nights, she gave him everything, then took it all away. He didn't chase, he didn't beg, he didn't bend. He stayed still, unshaken, present. And when the 8th night came, she knelt. This is the unspoken ritual of modern love. She doesn't test your money, she tests your nervous system. She withdraws, goes cold, gets emotional, pokes your pride, not to destroy you, but to see what you're made of. Because the truth most men never hear is this: the feminine does not want your weakness disguised as love. It wants your presence disguised as silence, your stillness under pressure, your refusal to flinch. She's not looking for someone to fix her. She's looking for someone who doesn't collapse when she breaks. And when you do collapse, she doesn't feel safe. Not because you weren't kind, but because you weren't anchored. She can only surrender. To the man who doesn't surrender to her moods, not to control her, but to show her you are not moved by chaos, because only then will she finally let herself fall, and only then will you know what it means to be chosen. She'll say she wants a king, but watch what happens when you sit on the throne. Suddenly, your confidence becomes arrogance, your clarity becomes coldness, your standards become control. Not because you're wrong, but because your power triggers the part of her that still wants to be tested. She doesn't want to lead, but she doesn't want you to hesitate when she challenges your lead either. This is the paradox of modern desire. She's been told to be strong, independent, equal, but deep inside, she still craves a man who stands taller than her strength. Not physically, psychologically. A man who doesn't apologize for his vision, a man who won't dim his fire to make her feel warm. And so, she will test your leadership through drama, through withdrawal, through sweet seduction followed by sudden rebellion. She'll provoke chaos, not to destroy your rule, but to see if your rule is real. Because the world is full of men who pretend to be kings, until a woman raises her eyebrow. And in that moment, you'll either collapse or you'll remain seated. Not out of ego, but out of sovereignty. Because a man who is ruled by her emotions will never rule her respect. And deep down, that's all she's ever searching for. Not a man who gives her the crown, but a man whose crown cannot be taken. They told you she wanted a nice man. They lied. They said if you were patient, polite, and passive, you'd be loved. They lied. They taught you that opening your heart would make her stay, that showing your emotions would make her respect you, that being available would make you attractive. But that was never true. It was just what made you easier to control. You were trained in classrooms, movies, and mothers' voices. To be good is to be soft. To be a man is to submit. But under all that virtue signaling was a strategy to tame you, to blunt the masculine edge that once built empires and replace it with emotional compliance. They fed you Disney lies, told you love was unconditional, told you women just want honesty, told you toxic masculinity was the problem. But where has that brought you? Now you're scared to lead, terrified to offend, constantly apologizing for your own instincts. You've become so careful that she stopped feeling you altogether. You were told she'd love your vulnerability. But the moment you cried, something in her eyes shifted. Respect faded, desire died. Why? Because the truth is buried beneath the lie. She doesn't crave your comfort. She craves your certainty. She doesn't test your emotions to connect. She tests your frame to see if it cracks. But they never told you that. Because if you knew how desire really worked, you'd stop playing their game. You'd stop performing, you'd stop chasing her validation, you'd stop believing the lie that said, if you're just good enough, she'll choose you. She never chose the nice one. She never stayed for softness. She never surrendered to the man begging to be seen. She surrendered to the man who saw through her and still didn't flinch. Because when you stop being who they told you to be and start becoming who you were built to be, she either submits or she vanishes. But either way, you've already won. Power does not return to the man who begs for it. It returns to the man who understands its source and moves in silence. Machiavelli would tell you, he who allows himself to be reformed by love is already conquered. So now you must unlearn the language of weakness. Forget trying to be understood. Forget waiting for her to value your loyalty. Forget hoping for a day she'll realize your worth. That day never comes, because power is not something she gives you. It's something you embody, with or without her. Reclaim these principles, one by one. 1. Detach from her reaction. She pulls away? Let her. She tests you. Pass silently. You never chase what's running, you study it. You never argue with emotion, you outlast it. 2. Control the frame. Always. You don't follow the emotional tempo. You dictate it. Set the rhythm of the interaction with your eyes, your tone, your absence. When she realizes she's not the center of your gravity, she feels it, and that's when control returns. 3. Become ungovernable. Build a life so rich in purpose, power, and sovereignty that no woman, no person feels like oxygen. She must know that your love is a privilege, not a prize. 4. Lead through strategy, not emotion. Seduction is not sincerity, it's orchestration. Power is not shown through words, but through the ability to walk away and never explain why. 5. Build alliances, not dependencies. Be the man with options, not to exploit them, but to remind the world you never needed to settle. Machiavelli would whisper this truth in your ear. The man who is feared for his detachment will always be desired for his presence, because the moment you no longer seek her approval, the game flips. Now she orbits you, now your silence becomes tension, now your direction becomes gravity. You are no longer the man she can shape. You are the mountain she must climb, and the storm she cannot tame. This is the masculine rebuild. It does not apologize, it does not wait. It reclaims power with precision and never looks back. Now you understand. She was never the prize. Your reaction was, she was only the mirror. reflecting the parts of you that were still begging to be chosen. But the mirror shattered, and all that's left is the man staring back. This is where the war ends, not with revenge, not with bitterness, but with clarity. You were never meant to be ruled by desire. You were meant to rule yourself. Let them call you cold. Let them call you distant. They mistake sovereignty for arrogance because they've never tasted freedom. Let her silence echo. Let her absence sharpen you. You don't fill the void with noise. You become the silence. And in that stillness, you become untouchable. Because the man who no longer chases, no longer breaks. He watches the storm, but does not kneel to it. You don't need to win her. You only need to remember who you were before she arrived. And if she ever returns, you won't need to speak. She'll feel it. The weight of your calm, the fire behind your eyes, the mountain she abandoned. Now, unmovable.